Welcome back, everyone. This video is for Chapter 4 of our Android app course. In Chapter 4, we learn how to add a launcher icon to an app, and we're also going to learn how to use radio buttons. First, let me explain the launcher icon. Now, for this particular project that you're watching on this video, which you are not going to turn in, there's already a icon created. It's a graphic file. And the way you get a launcher icon into a project is you come here on the menu bar to the main menu selection, click it, you go to New, and in the menu that follows, you select this, Image Asset. You click on that. Now, I've already added the icon to this project. It looks like this. It's like a medical scale. The way you make it part of this project is you come here to under source asset, under path, you then select the folder icon and you basically put the directory path or folder path of where that graphic file is for your icon. You also want to come to the scaling group and on the trim selection, select yes. By default, it's no, but you want it to be yes. That cleans the image up a little bit. Now, there are several resolutions for this. As you can see, this right here says XHDPI, but there are about 5 different resolutions that can show up. The app will automatically pick the best resolution to fit what you want to do. By default, we see XHDPI. And all of these different resolutions go into the MIPMAP folder. That's under the res folder. So that's the only time we're going to talk about the MIPMAP folder, which I wish we could talk about it more because I like that name. I think it's cool. But anyway, the MIPMAP folder is what contains all the resolutions. Now, I've already added this, so I'm going to hit cancel. You would hit next, and then eventually you'd hit a finish button. Okay. Now, also, that icon usually does not appear in the preview window. Yeah, but it does appear usually when you run the program, although I've noticed sometimes it doesn't show up every single time, so I don't know. Hopefully it'll show up. Now, one more thing. For this project, I changed my resolution here in the component tree from a constraint layout to a relative layout. The way you do that is you right-click here at the very top and you select Convert View in the menu, and then you pick the layout you want. Now, honestly, I think if you leave it as a constraint layout, I think you're fine. I don't think it matters. The author of the original textbook insisted it be a relative layout, so I did it that way this time. One thing you should do, if you're using a relative layout, you see this symbol up here that looks like a magnet. You want that symbol looking like this, because that will auto-connect each subsequent widget to its parent, meaning the one that came before it. If you click on that and have a slash through the magnet, then there's no auto-connect, but I have found if you do that, every widget you put in there defaults into the top left corner and it won't move. So leave the magnet as it is. And even with the magnet there, I found I really had to do some serious work to move things around to get it relatively centered. So from experience, you may just want to stick with a constraint layout on this. But if you want to try it, you have been let know of the possible side effects. All right, let's take a look at the widgets that we have here. We have a text view for the title. It says convert patient weight. That's just a title. But do you notice the text is red? You can change the text color over here in the attributes window. As you can see, here's the text attribute. And again, we're using the strings.xml to get data into that text view. The text size is 30 SP, but here under text color, as you can see, I've already made it red because there's a red square there. If you have not set a text color, what will show up instead of the red square is a little icon that looks like an eyedropper. Regardless, what you want to do is click on that eyedropper or the red square if you want to change the color, and you get this menu to show up. Now, if any of you have any experience working with graphics, you might be familiar with this RGB concept. That stands for red, green, blue. And then each of the colors, red, green, or blue, gets a numerical value to say how much of each color do you want. The largest value for each color is 255. So right now, I have 255 in the red and 0 in the green and the blue. That means it's all red. If you want it all green, you change the red to 0, change the green to 255, leave the blue at 0, and you get all green, etc., and so forth. So that's how you change the color of text, and that is the text color attribute. Okay, we have another number text box. We're going to enter the weight of whatever patient we're dealing with here. We have a button to convert the weight from pounds to kilograms or vice versa. And finally, we have another text box here that has no text in it. That's where the result of the conversion will show up. Now, once again, though, as you'll notice, in this last text view, I've made the text red. Same way, RGB. Now the new thing we're going to do, that's the two radio buttons that you see here. Now radio buttons, as you can see, have a circle that you click to select them. What's unique about radio buttons, though, is that you're only allowed to select one at a time. Normally, you cannot select more than one radio button. The way you have to do radio buttons in Android Studio works like this. You don't just drag and drop radio buttons into the preview window. The first thing you do is you come to the buttons category in the palette, and you select this one, radio group. It's radio group that you drag and drop into the preview screen. And then once you get a radio group in there, now you drag and drop individual radio buttons, not onto the preview screen, but you drag and drop them down here into the component tree and make sure they're inside the radio group. Do you notice how my two radio buttons are indented a little bit underneath the radio group? That's what you want. You want to drag it. Once you get a radio group drag and drop into the preview window, you want to drag and drop each individual radio button into the radio group in the component tree. Do not drag and drop radio buttons into the preview window. It's a mess, or at least I found it to be a mess when you do that. And the PowerPoints for Chapter 4 also tell you to do that. So as you make your case projects for homework, please have those Chapter 4 PowerPoints open to remind you how to do radio buttons. Okay. Here is the strings XML. There's all the text you're going to need. And now here is the Java code. All right. So what we have in the Java code, for starters, here is our main activity class. Only one page for this particular project. Here I've declared 3 variables before we start the onCreate method. One's for a conversion rate, which is 2.2. This weight entered variable, that is whatever weight was entered. And then we have one for the converted weight. Now, here we are in the onCreate method. These 3 lines of code right here, which you will need to type in exactly as you see them here, are what displays the launcher icon. If you do it right, notice right here, there's a little picture of that launcher icon that shows up in that second line of code that I've circled. It's these 3 lines of code that will display the launcher icon when you run the program. Then we have 4 widget objects created. Here's an edit text object. That's for where the user enters the weight. We have one for the first radio button, one for the second radio button, and finally, one for the result text view. So I've created these 4 before I do the button. And now here's the button. A lot of code here. All right, so here I've created the button object. Here is set on click listener. And then here is the on click method. Now, the first thing I do is I get the weight that the user entered into a variable. Now, since it could potentially have a decimal point in it, instead of saying integer parse int, I'm saying double dot parse double. Double is the data type that handles data with decimal points in it. Once again, you use the get text and the toString methods to get the whatever the user entered out of the text view, and then you convert it to double from string, and then you put it into this variable. I'm also doing another decimal format object. I'm calling it 10th because I want everything to be displayed to one decimal place. I want the converted weight displayed to one decimal place. And keep in mind this word pattern here, this you do not type. It just shows up as you're typing things in. So do not type the word pattern. It will just show up automatically. All right, now I have to do conversions based on which radio button was checked. Here's the first one where we're converting to kilograms. Notice I am calling this isChecked method, which is a Boolean method. It returns true or false. So if that radio button's been selected, the isChecked method returns true. If not, it returns false. Now I'm saying if the weight entered is less than or equal to 500, apparently they don't want to do any conversions if you put more than 500 pounds in there. You're going to convert the weight to kilograms by dividing by the conversion rate, and then you will call the setText method to put your converted weight into the result text view. And you use the plus sign here as concatenation to add the word kilograms to the end. Now, if you come to this else, meaning that the weight is not less than or equal to 500, you're going to use this little thing to show a pop-up on the screen to say that was invalid. Notice it is the toast object. Toast, pop-up, cute, huh? I did not think of that name. Okay, anyway, what you do is you say toast with a capital T and then dot make text. You're calling the make text method. First, you have to say your first parameter is what context you're in. You're in the main activity, so you say main activity dot this. Then you put whatever message you want displayed in the pop-up. Then the third parameter is you say how long you want it to be there. Well, there's only two selections. It's either toast.length long or toast.length short. Go for long. And then finally, after calling the make text function or method, now you must call the show method. You say dot show with parentheses. That's what makes the pop-up show up. Okay. So this is all one if statement. Now, after that if statement is done, there's no else after this if right here. We're just going to go to another one. We're going to see if the second radio button has been checked. And if it has, then we're going to go through a similar thing. If it's been checked, if the weight, so we're going from kilograms to pounds, if the weight entered is less or equal to 225, you convert it and you use setText to display it. Else, if the weight entered is not less than or equal to 225, here's toast again. So the kilos must be less than 225. That's how this is going to work. This code down here, this was here, I think ever since the Koala version came out. This code shows up within the onCreate method. You don't need to change it. You just leave it there. And I don't really know if it matters if it goes after all the code you type in or before all the code you type in. Let's just say I put it after and it worked fine. So just leave that code there. Don't bother touching this code that I've highlighted in blue. Okay, I'm now going to try to build and run this app. So I'm going to pause the recording and I'll bring you back when the app is up and running. All right, the app is now up and running. So I'm going to enter a weight. I'm going pounds to kilograms by default. So I will say, let's do 500. Convert it. There, 227.3 kilograms. Now suppose I do 501. Watch the bottom of the screen. There, pounds must be less than 500. The only thing that got me was I still have my previous conversion there. We'll see a way to get through that later. Now I'll go kilograms to pounds. I'll say 225, convert. That's 495 pounds. If I do 226, there's my pop-up at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to show you, though, a couple other lines of code that I've added so that the user knows even more that they made a mistake. So I'm going to pause the recording again, and I'll bring you back when it's ready. Okay, we are back. What I did in my code is I added 2 more lines of code. Here in the else's, so here is where I'm checking if the first radio button is checked. In the else, I added this line. I said, I used the setText method to add the word invalid into the result text box. And I did the same thing down here for the second radio button. So let's go ahead and go invalid. I think if I'm going pounds to kilograms, 501 is invalid. If I convert the weight, look at that, invalid. And there's my pop-up. If I go back to 500, there's my proper conversion, no pop-up. But if I go to 501, invalid, and there's the pop-up. Similarly, if I go to kilograms to pounds, if I say 225, 495 pounds, no pop-up. If I say 226, it says invalid, and there's my pop-up. Okay, you're not required to add those 2 lines of code like I just did. I just think it looks better if the user enters something invalid. I didn't want to leave the previous conversion displayed. I wanted to make sure the user knew something was invalid along with the pop-up. Just me. Okay, that is everything for Chapter 4. If you have any questions, please send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu.